Good morning. Happy Thursday. So, Chauncey Hollingberry, who had YouTube channels by the name of Dragonfire Auditing, I believe, and Law Offices of Daddy and Master, he filed a motion to recuse the judge in his cyberstalking case, his federal cyberstalking case. Now, that cyberstalking case started, I want to say, in like 2020 or 2021. It was a long time ago. Chauncey is a strange little dude. He would do things like audit in, those V for Vendetta masks that have I think they're Guy Fawkes masks. He would audit in those. He would wear body armor when he did it. I believe he audited armed sometimes, and he'd do things like audit schools, like where children are present. He would also audit government offices, etc. He's also the guy who is so insecure. I mean, he's a tiny, weak little dude, like prison food. He was held for a long time without release. Pre-trial, and he did a bunch of motions about not being able to get the right food. He couldn't stomach the prison food and blah blah blah. He's also so insecure that he's the auditor who put on YouTube a seance he did where he summoned Beelzebub, I shit you not, to ask Beelzebub if he had a bigger dick than me. Like, if there is anything ever that can confirm that a man has insecurity about the size of his penis, that's a pretty good indicator. You could put a pin in that one. If someone ever does a video where they have to talk to Satan about the size of their penis to get reassurance that it's bigger than someone else's, that's your sign. That's your sign. He lived with his mom. He may or may not have abused his mom. Anyway, I think in 2021 or 2022, he ended up pleading guilty to one count of cyberstalking. And he was given, the standard stuff for cyberstalking. You can't have access. You can't have electronic devices that have access to the internet. And if you do, you can only have them under certain circumstances. The probation officer can go out and search any electronic items that you have in your house, including roommates and things like that. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, this video will probably get a privacy strike because Chauncey has privacy struck all of my videos on him and has been successful on 4 or 5 of them where I've gone over filings that he's done in his case, presumably because it actually had his name, address, and phone number on it. Even though on a lot of them, the address was the prison that he was currently, or the jail that he was currently being housed in. But whatever, it doesn't bother me. I really don't care. It's not like I'm monetized. So anyway, he pled guilty, got the standard probation conditions, and then he violated his probation conditions. I know at least once, maybe twice. I don't really follow his case. There are people in my Discord who are victims or victim adjacent to him. And they're much more keen on his case than I am. I mean, he was really just a blip. I mean, he was interesting while he was actually going out and auditing, simply because he was so incredibly wrong on the law. He was so certain of it that he named his channel Law Offices of Daddy and Master. How'd that work out for you? And he also did incredibly dangerous things. I mean, it was fascinating to watch. going out to audit a school in body armor and a Guy Fawkes mask, like that is just an invitation to get shot. Like that is just an invitation to get shot by the police. People get very, very touchy about weirdos doing weird things around kids. You know, rightfully so. You know, I wouldn't have particularly mourned it if he had caught a bullet doing shit like that, because I could see how an officer would. That's all I'm saying, you know. And because like even like when he's confronted, like you very like a lot of resistance to the officer. So, you know, like very interesting to watch, simply because it was a slow motion train wreck and you were just waiting to see him just get blasted. Not that I want him to get blasted by any stretch of the imagination. I don't wish harm on him, you know. I'm happy that he's not currently incarcerated. But he violated his probation conditions at least once. Maybe twice. Just recently, I want to say in like August or September. Maybe my dates are off, but of this year, I think he got new probation conditions. Or he got his probation conditions revisited because of a violation. And one of the conditions that he has is he can't audit. I don't remember when that was put in, don't really care, but he can't audit. So in addition to the normal cyber stalking things, he can't audit. Well, anyway, a couple days ago, he filed a motion to recuse the judge. Now, this judge has been on his case since before he pled guilty. This wasn't the first judge on his case. This was the second judge on his case, but this judge has been on his case for probably 3 years now. So a long time. And so Chauncey raised essentially two facts. The first fact is that the judge, at the time Chauncey was auditing a particular government building, the judge was employed there, and Chauncey alleges that the judge was in the building. Not that he witnessed anything, but he was in the building. So he wasn't a percipient witness, but he was in the building and he was employed there. And so Chauncey alleges that somehow makes the judge biased, or gives the appearance of bias, where a reasonable person would think that because the judge at the time of the alleged incident, or at the incident I guess he pled guilty to, the judge was present in the building and was employed there. I guess he didn't act. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, he didn't actually plead guilty to it. He only pled guilty to cyber stalking. The victims did get a restraining order. I think it's a permanent restraining order against Chauncey, or at least one victim did. The main victim, some gal who he was just completely obnoxious to, completely unreasonably obnoxious to. So he thinks the judge is biased because the judge was present at a building when he did an audit. Number one. Number two, he thinks the judge is biased because the judge made rulings that Chauncey doesn't think comport with the crime, because other people convicted of cyber stalking didn't get a restriction on audit. Now, judges, like if the judge was a percipient witness, if the judge was physically present at the time of the alleged incident, not in his official capacity as a judge, then maybe. Now, so for example, let's just say a judge is in his courtroom and a judge sees the person do something that the judge thinks is a crime. Would that judge necessarily be recused? No, you see it all the time. The judge just instantly, contempt, boom. Like it's happened in front of the judge. The judge saw it. Like, what are you going to do? Like, the judge witnessed it. Like, the judge is the finder of fact that the judge saw it happen because it happened in the courtroom. Boom, contempt. So, just because a judge might have seen something doesn't necessarily mean that the judge is going to be biased. But Chauncey also doesn't allege that the judge saw anything. So essentially, Chauncey's big thing there is the judge had access to outside information. Well, judges always have access to outside information. Like, you think the judge in the who's that kid who shot people in a riot in, I think, Minnesota or Michigan? I can never remember that kid's name. Anyway, like, if you think the judge didn't see news reports about that, like, you're out of your mind. And this is essentially what Chauncey is pleading, is that the judge has access to outside information. Just like every judge is probably exposed to news stories. If it's a high-profile case, they're exposed to news stories about, the incident. That in itself doesn't mean that the judge is biased. And the other issue that he raised is the my particular probation conditions aren't the same as everybody else's. Well, first of all, the judge would be aware that it was auditing that got Chauncey into the position to cyberstalk these people. But for auditing, Chauncey wouldn't have cyberstalked, especially this particular gal who he cyberstalked to the point where she had to get a civil harassment restraining order, and it turned into felony federal cyberstalking charges. I mean, there's your sign. So the judge has first of all, the judge doesn't make you agree to those probation conditions. You can say, no, I'm not going to agree to them. Now, obviously, if you don't agree to them, you go to prison because, well, you've been sentenced to prison. And this is like hey, if you agree to abide by rules, if you agree to give up some of your rights, then we'll let you stay out in society as long as you follow the conditions that you've agreed to. So Chauncey's essentially saying that because the judge allowed Chauncey to agree to these conditions, one of which is not auditing, that somehow that makes the judge biased. Well, first of all, the judge can agree that it's an appropriate measure, but Chauncey didn't have to agree to it. It's like when people out on probation, all of a sudden, they took away my Fourth Amendment right. No, they took away, my right against search and seizure. No, they didn't. You agreed as a condition of release to give up that right. You agreed to it. So you can agree to give up all sorts of rights. Chauncey can agree not only to give up his Fourth Amendment right, which he did because the government at any time could go in and search his place of residence, his electronic devices. He's agreed to give up a certain measure of his freedom because the probation officer can require him to come into the probation office at any time. He's agreed to give up those rights. In addition, he's agreed to give up the First Amendment right to protest, which is what I believe that most auditing is. I understand they're doing it for money. Well, you could protest for money. I mean, how many paid protesters have there been at just about any given protest, So anyway, here's my take on it. If the judge can do one of two things. The judge can either say, you know what, fuck it, I don't really care. I'll just go ahead and recuse myself. I'll let some other judge deal with it. That could happen. I've seen it happen. One of the attorneys I work for has a huge issue with one of the family law judges in Placer County. And every time this attorney gets a case with that particular judge on it, he'll file a motion to recuse the judge. And the judge will just, okay, fine, I won't be on that case. I'm not saying that the motion has any merit, but the attorney does it, and the judge is like, fine, I don't fucking care, right? So the judge could do that. But if the judge looks at this on the merits, there aren't sufficient facts to show that the judge is biased. You can't use, even if it was an order that the judge made, that the judge crafted, that Chauncey didn't agree to, you can't use an order of the court to prove bias. I didn't agree with the judge's decision, therefore he must be biased. No, it doesn't work that way. We've seen that in other cases. I've gone over this before. That doesn't work. And the fact that he was allegedly present at a building employed by the state of Arizona at the time of one of the audits doesn't make him a percipient witness. It doesn't make him biased. Let's go with this way. If the judge is in his courtroom and an auditor goes into the courthouse, the judge doesn't see this, but the auditor goes into the courthouse, causes a commotion. We've seen this time and time again, wanting to bring a camera into the courthouse. And the security detain him, trespass him, cops come and arrest him. We've seen this happen. Does that disqualify all the judges in that courthouse? No, absolutely not. It's a ridiculous argument that's ridiculous on its face. It almost certainly, I mean, there are no guarantees in the law because judges make mistakes, but almost certainly it's going to fail on its face. So good luck, Chauncey. I mean, it would certainly bring a lot of excitement back to auditing if you were allowed to do it. You'd almost certainly catch new charges if you were allowed to do it. But, if that's really what you want to do, if that's the row you want to hoe, more power to you, buddy. I support you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.